Every morning at exactly 6:30 a.m., people in the rough industrial district witnessed the same unbelievable scene. A tiny 7-year-old girl walking straight toward the Iron Wolves biker clubhouse, like she owned the street. Some shook their heads, others filmed from their car windows, but no one really knew who she was. Whispers spread through the neighborhood. Who was that child? Where were her parents? And why would a little girl go near those dangerous bikers every single day? But no one knew the truth, because the little girl never explained herself. She just walked every single morning at the same time, same route, same fearless determination, until one day a concerned neighbor finally decided to follow her. And what she discovered left everyone stunned. What was she hiding behind that innocent face? Stay with us because the truth will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The city was barely awake when the sound of small sneakers echoed down Industrial Avenue. Morning fog hung thick, turning the rising sun into a pale red blur. Through that quiet haze came a sight everyone in the neighborhood had grown used to, yet could never quite explain. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, walked purposefully down the cracked sidewalk, wearing a worn denim jacket that looked 3 sizes too big. Her backpack bounced with each step, covered in patches and pins. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't the jacket. It was her destination. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club, a weathered brick building at the end of the block with bikes lined up outside like metal sentries. The kind of place most people crossed the street to avoid. Yet this child walked straight toward it every morning without hesitation. No adult ever accompanied her. No one knew where she came from or what business a little girl could possibly have at a biker clubhouse. Every morning, 6:30 a.m. sharp, she appeared, crossing the same streets, following the same path, and disappearing through the club's heavy steel door. Then, hours later, she would emerge and walk home as if nothing unusual had happened. Locals whispered stories about her. Some said she was the daughter of a member who'd gone to prison. Others claimed she was running errands for the bikers, maybe delivering something illegal. But none of them could explain why the Iron Wolves would allow a child inside every single day. Even the bikers themselves seemed protective of her. One morning, Mr. Chen, the elderly owner of the corner store, tried to stop her. "Little miss," he called gently, "does your mama know you're walking here alone?" But before she could answer, 2 leather-clad bikers appeared from the clubhouse doorway. They didn't threaten or speak. They simply stood there, arms crossed, making it clear the conversation was over. The girl said nothing. She simply adjusted her backpack, gave Mr. Chen a small smile, and continued on her way, leaving the shopkeeper staring after her with concern he didn't know how to express. Soon, people began filming her walks from their windows. Clips of the tiny girl and the motorcycle club flooded social media. Some called her the biker princess. Others joked she was being trained as the club's future president. But beneath the jokes was growing concern. The girl never looked scared. She never hesitated. And the bikers, men who terrified most people, treated her with a gentleness that seemed completely out of character. Every few steps, she would glance at a small photograph she kept in her jacket pocket. Her expression would soften, then harden with determination. And the bikers would stop whatever they were doing when they saw her coming, clearing a path like she was royalty. One morning, a new resident named Sarah Martinez watched from her apartment window. She'd just moved into the neighborhood and couldn't believe what she was seeing. A child walking alone into a biker clubhouse every morning. It didn't make sense. Something felt deeply wrong. She grabbed her phone and took a video, not knowing that this single clip would soon uncover a secret the whole neighborhood had been blind to for months. The video Sarah posted went viral overnight. Millions of people watched in disbelief as a small child walked confidently past rows of Harley-Davidsons and into a notorious biker clubhouse. Comment sections exploded with theories. Maybe she's helping them with something. No way. Something's wrong here. Those bikers are using her somehow. Look at how they watch her. They're protecting her. Within days, reporters showed up on Industrial Avenue. Camera crews waited each morning, hoping for a glimpse. But the little girl seemed unfazed. She never looked at the cameras, never spoke to anyone, just walked silently toward the clubhouse, head held high. The mystery deepened when someone noticed the girl always carried the same photograph, old and creased. In one zoomed-in video, a sharp-eyed viewer spotted something others had missed. A military medal pinned inside her jacket, and on her backpack, a small embroidered patch that read, "Semper Fi." The comments grew darker. Where are her parents? This feels really wrong. Yet people couldn't stop watching. And every morning she walked the same path as if nothing had changed, the bikers forming a protective wall around her. From her window, Sarah whispered, "What are you doing there, little girl?" She didn't know it yet, but she was about to find out. Sarah Martinez had seen a lot in her years as a social worker. She'd dealt with neglect, abuse, and family trauma. But something about that little girl walking into a biker clubhouse every morning stirred a concern she couldn't ignore. She began documenting everything. The girl always arrived at exactly 6:30 a.m. She would pause at the door, touch something in her pocket, take a deep breath, and knock 3 times. Always 3 times. The same gray-bearded biker would open the door, and she would enter. 2 hours later, she'd emerge. One cold morning, Sarah decided to follow her. She waited until the girl turned the corner, then followed half a block behind. The girl moved with surprising confidence, navigating the broken sidewalks like she'd walked this route 1,000 times. When a delivery truck backed up dangerously close, she simply stepped into a doorway and waited with complete calm. As they approached the clubhouse, Sarah heard something that made her freeze. Not music or laughter, but the steady beep of medical equipment, the quiet murmur of careful voices, the unmistakable sound of someone in pain. The girl knocked 3 times. When the gray-bearded biker opened the door, Sarah caught a glimpse inside. Hospital beds, IV stands, medical equipment. And in those beds, men in various states of illness, all watching the little girl enter with expressions of profound gratitude. Sarah's breath caught. This wasn't what anyone thought. Before she could process it, the big biker's eyes met hers across the street. He didn't look angry. He looked tired and sad. Then he closed the door gently. Sarah stood there, her mind racing. "Oh my God," she whispered. "She's not in danger. She's helping them." The next morning, Sarah positioned herself closer, pretending to wait for a bus. When the girl arrived, Sarah noticed more details. Her backpack was carefully packed with medical supplies, bandages, pill bottles, ointment. When the girl reached the clubhouse, she sat on the step and reviewed a small notebook, her lips moving silently as if rehearsing. Then she stood, squared her shoulders, and knocked 3 times. The gray-bearded biker opened the door. "Morning, sweetheart." "Morning, Bear," the girl replied softly. "How was the night?" "Rough for a couple of them. But you being here helps more than you know." Sarah's heart clenched at the warmth in that exchange. As the door closed, she made a decision. She walked across the street and knocked firmly. Bear's face appeared, immediately guarded. "Can I help you?" "I'm Sarah Martinez. I'm a social worker," Sarah said, showing her credentials. "I need to know that child is safe." Bear studied her, then opened the door wider. "You better come in then. But understand something first. That little girl is safer here than anywhere else in this city." Sarah stepped inside and froze. The clubhouse had been transformed into a makeshift hospice. 6 hospital beds lined the walls, each occupied by a man in various stages of illness. Veterans, their tattoos and dog tags visible. Medical equipment beeped softly. But what stopped Sarah was the little girl. She stood beside a bed, reading aloud from a children's book to a gaunt man who watched her with absolute adoration. "She comes every morning," Bear said quietly. "Reads to them, helps with medications, talks to them, for 2 hours every single day before school." "But why?" Sarah whispered. Bear pointed to a photo on the wall. A Marine in dress uniform standing next to a woman holding a baby. "That's Sergeant Mike Chen, served 3 tours, came back with PTSD and cancer, died 8 months ago." He paused. "That's his daughter, Emma. Before Mike died, he made her promise something. The men here, they're all like him. Veterans who fell through the cracks. No family, no insurance, nowhere to go. Mike spent his last year helping them. When he died, Emma asked us if she could finish what her daddy started." Sarah watched Emma adjust an IV line with steady hands. "You let a 7-year-old do medical care?" Bear shook his head. "We have a retired nurse who comes in. Emma doesn't do the medical stuff. She does something more important. She gives them hope. She reads to them. She reminds them that someone cares. Some of these guys haven't had a visitor in years. Then this little girl shows up every morning, and suddenly they've got a reason to wake up." One of the men raised a weak hand. Emma immediately went to him. "Hi, Mr. Jackson. Did you sleep okay?" "Better now that you're here, Angel," he wheezed. "Are you going to finish that story about the dragon?" Emma smiled and began reading, her voice filling the room with warmth. Around her, men who had been grimacing relaxed. One who had been staring blankly closed his eyes and smiled. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. This is what everyone was worried about? This is what the videos couldn't show? Bear nodded. People see bikers and a little girl and assume the worst. They don't see the whole picture. Mike Chen was our brother. These men are our brothers. And Emma, she's keeping a promise to her daddy. We're just making sure she can do it safely. Sarah watched Emma move from bed to bed, greeting each man by name, asking about their pain, offering water. The bikers hovered protectively, making sure she never had to reach too high or lift anything heavy. "The neighborhood thinks you're using her," Sarah said softly. Bear's jaw tightened. "Let them think what they want. We know the truth, and these men know an angel when they see one." As Sarah turned to leave, Emma looked up and smiled. "Are you here to help too?" Sarah's throat tightened. She knelt to Emma's level. "I'd like to, if you'll teach me." Emma's face lit up. "Really? Mr. Rodriguez loves when people read the sports section to him." Sarah took the newspaper Bear handed her and walked to Mr. Rodriguez's bed, completely undone by the simple, powerful love of a child keeping a promise. Outside, the world was making assumptions. But inside, something beautiful was unfolding. A daughter's love, a father's legacy, and a group of rough bikers protecting both. It was a clear, cold morning when everything changed. Emma was halfway down Industrial Avenue when she heard it. The screech of tires. She turned to see a car speeding through a red light, heading straight toward an elderly woman with a walker in the crosswalk. Without thinking, Emma dropped her backpack and ran. "Stop! Look out!" The woman froze in the middle of the street, confused. The car wasn't slowing. Then, from nowhere, 3 motorcycles roared to life. Bear and 2 other iron wolves shot out of the clubhouse, positioning themselves between the car and the woman. The driver slammed on his brakes, stopping inches from Bear's bike. Emma ran to the elderly woman, taking her arm gently. "It's okay, ma'am. You're safe now." The driver jumped out, angry. "Are you crazy?" Bear dismounted slowly, towering over him. "You ran a red light. You almost killed someone." Other bikers emerged. The scene could have turned violent, but Emma's voice cut through. "Please don't fight. The lady needs help." Every biker immediately shifted focus. They helped the woman to the sidewalk, while another called 911. Emma stayed by her side, holding her hand. "You're very brave," the woman said, tears streaming. "You saved my life." Emma shook her head. "Bear and his friends saved you." The woman looked at the bikers, then at Emma. "You're the girl everyone's been talking about." "Yes, ma'am. I come to help the veterans inside. My daddy was a Marine." "He'd be so proud of you." By the time paramedics arrived, a crowd had gathered. Someone had filmed everything: the speeding car, the bikers' intervention, Emma running to help. The video went viral faster than any of the others. But this time, the narrative shifted. Comments flooded in. "Those bikers are heroes. That little girl has more courage than most adults. I've been judging them. I was so wrong." Sarah stood watching and pulled out her phone. "My name is Sarah Martinez, and I'm a social worker," she began recording. "For weeks I've been watching Emma Chen walk to the Iron Wolves Clubhouse. I was concerned, but I was wrong about what was happening." She turned the camera toward the clubhouse. Inside that building, 7 terminally ill veterans receive end-of-life care. Men our system forgot. Every morning, a 7-year-old girl fulfills a promise to her dying father. She reads to them, talks to them, reminds them someone cares. The camera panned to Bear and the other bikers. "These men have transformed their clubhouse into a hospice. They pay for supplies themselves. They protect a little girl's right to honor her father's memory." Sarah's voice cracked. "We've been quick to judge, but the truth is, this is what love looks like. This little girl is teaching us what it means to keep a promise." Within hours, the video had millions of views. Donations poured in. Medical companies offered free equipment. Nurses volunteered, and people began to understand. That evening, Emma prepared to leave the clubhouse and found a surprise. The entire neighborhood had gathered. Mr. Chen from the corner store, Mrs. Rodriguez from the laundromat, families Emma had never spoken to. Mr. Chen stepped forward, tears in his eyes. "We're sorry. We didn't understand. But we do now, and we want to help." Emma looked up at Bear, confused. He smiled and nodded. "Tell them what you need, sweetheart." Emma's voice was small but steady. "The men get lonely in the afternoons, and Mr. Jackson really wants to see the ocean before he dies." Mrs. Rodriguez wiped her eyes. "We'll make sure they get visitors every day." A man stepped forward. "I have a van with a wheelchair lift. Jackson will see the ocean, I promise." One by one, neighbors offered help. The little girl who had walked alone suddenly had an entire community walking with her. 3 months later, Industrial Avenue was transformed. The clubhouse now had an official sign: the Sergeant Mike Chen Veterans Hospice. Emma still came every morning at 6:30 a.m., but now she wasn't alone. Volunteers walked with her, carrying supplies and hope. Mr. Jackson had made it to the ocean. The bikers rode him out in a special sidecar, and he spent an afternoon watching the waves, Emma beside him in the sand. He passed away peacefully 2 weeks later, his hand held by Emma and Bear. His last words were, "Thank you for reminding me what I was fighting for." Emma added his photo to the memorial wall beside her father's. "Rest easy, hero," she whispered. "I'll take care of the others." The hospice now served 15 veterans. What started as one girl's promise had become a model being replicated across the country. Biker clubs everywhere were opening their doors to care for forgotten veterans. Emma had been invited to speak everywhere, but she always gave the same message. My daddy taught me that love is action, that promises matter, that family isn't just blood, but the people who show up when you need them, and that every person deserves to be cared for, especially at the end. News outlets called her the Angel of Industrial Avenue. But Emma remained humble, focused on her mission, walking into that clubhouse every morning with the same determination that had started it all. One morning, as she prepared to enter, a reporter asked, "What do you want people to know?" Emma looked at her father's photograph. "I want them to know that when we make a promise, we keep it, and that everyone deserves to be taken care of, especially those who took care of us." "What's next for you?" She looked at the veterans through the window. "I'm going to keep coming every morning. When these heroes go home, I'll help the next ones, because that's what Daddy would do." That evening, as Emma headed home, she didn't walk alone. Neighbors greeted her by name. The street that once looked threatening now looked like home. Bear walked her to her apartment. Emma's grandmother opened the door, pride in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," Grandmother Chen said, holding her close. "I'm keeping my promise, Grandma," Emma whispered, "and I'll keep it until all his brothers are home." In the clubhouse, 7 veterans slept peacefully, because now they knew they weren't forgotten. They weren't alone. And tomorrow morning, a little girl with an oversized jacket and a backpack full of hope would walk through their door again. The story had started with suspicion. It grew into concern. But it ended with something more powerful: understanding, community, and love. A daughter keeping her father's legacy alive, bikers protecting a sacred promise, and a neighborhood learning that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear leather, and sometimes they're raised by angels in denim jackets. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Because stories like this remind us that love, loyalty, and courage can change the world.